You think you want freedom, but Friedrich Nietzsche saw through this lie. The truth is, you're terrified of freedom, and you've spent your entire life building elaborate cages to protect yourself from it. Today, you're going to discover why the very thing you claim to desire most is actually what you're running from fastest. Most people live their entire lives as what Nietzsche called the last man. Comfortable, safe, seeking only pleasure and avoiding pain, never realizing they've traded their souls for security. You say you want freedom, but what you really want is comfortable slavery with better benefits. Friedrich Nietzsche looked at humanity in the late 1800s and saw something that horrified him. People were becoming smaller, weaker, more dependent on external authorities to tell them how to live. He watched as individuals surrendered their power to governments, religions, social conventions, and popular opinion, all while convincing themselves they were becoming more civilized and enlightened. But Nietzsche understood something that most people still refuse to face. True freedom isn't liberation from constraints. It's the terrifying responsibility of creating your own meaning in a universe that offers no guarantees, no safety nets, and no predetermined purpose. Freedom isn't getting what you want. Freedom is having to decide what you want when there's no authority to tell you what you should want. This is why you fear freedom. Not because it's difficult to obtain, but because once you have it, you have no one to blame but yourself. No excuses, no external forces to point to, no systems to rebel against. Just you, your choices, and the crushing weight of being completely responsible for what you make of your life. Nietzsche called this the death of God, not just the literal death of religious belief, but the death of all external authorities that previously gave life meaning and direction. When you truly internalize that no one is coming to save you, that there's no cosmic plan for your life, that you are completely alone in creating meaning from meaninglessness, something inside you recoils in terror. Because here's what freedom actually means. You have to become your own God. You have to create values instead of inheriting them. You have to choose your own suffering instead of having it chosen for you. You have to take full ownership of every moment of your existence, knowing that whatever happens, you could have chosen differently. Think about the last time you complained about your job, your relationship, your financial situation, your living circumstances. Notice how good it felt to blame external forces, to see yourself as a victim of circumstances beyond your control. That feeling of victimhood is actually relief. Relief from the terrifying recognition that you have far more power to change your situation than you're willing to admit. Nietzsche saw that humans would rather be slaves with clear instructions than free beings who have to figure everything out for themselves. You'd rather follow someone else's diet plan than listen to your body. You'd rather adopt someone else's values than examine what you actually believe. You'd rather blame the system than acknowledge your power to transcend it. This is what he meant by slave morality. The psychological tendency to seek comfort in powerlessness, to find identity in what you're against rather than what you're for, to derive meaning from following rather than leading. Slave morality convinces you that your limitations are virtues, that your compliance is wisdom, that your fears are humility. But here's where it gets brutal. Nietzsche realized that most people don't just fear freedom, they actively sabotage any chance of achieving it. You create drama to avoid dealing with real challenges. You seek comfort to avoid growth. You follow trends to avoid thinking for yourself. You embrace victim mentalities to avoid taking responsibility for your power. If this harsh mirror is already making you uncomfortable, imagine what comes next. Subscribe to discover why your discomfort with these ideas is exactly the proof that they're true. Let me show you how this plays out in your daily life through what Nietzsche would recognize as the modern epidemic of freedom avoidance. You live in the most free society in human history, with more choices, opportunities, and possibilities than any generation before you. Yet look around. Are people happier, more fulfilled, more alive, or are they more anxious, depressed, and lost than ever? Nietzsche would say this is predictable. When you give people unlimited choices without the psychological strength to handle choice, they become paralyzed. When you offer freedom to people who have been conditioned to seek security above all else, they experience that freedom as a burden rather than a gift. Think about how you handle choices in your own life. When faced with important decisions, what career to pursue, where to live, whom to marry, how do you typically respond? Most people immediately start seeking external validation. They poll their friends, research what experts recommend, look for data and statistics to make the choice for them. They do everything possible to avoid the terrifying reality that the choice is ultimately theirs alone to make. This is what Nietzsche called the herd mentality, the psychological need to make choices based on what others are doing rather than what authentically resonates with your individual nature. The herd provides safety, predictability, and the comforting illusion that if everyone is doing something, it must be right. But here's what the herd mentality costs you: your individual genius, your unique perspective, your authentic desires, your personal power. You trade everything that makes you distinctly you for the security of being like everyone else. Nietzsche saw that most people would rather be successfully mediocre than risk being authentically extraordinary. Why? Because mediocrity is safe. If you fail at being average, you can blame circumstances. But if you fail at expressing your authentic self, you have to face the possibility that your authentic self isn't as powerful as you hoped. This is the core of your freedom phobia. You're not afraid of external oppression. You're afraid of discovering that you might not be as capable, creative, or strong as you've been telling yourself. Freedom forces you to test your actual capabilities against reality instead of protecting your potential with excuses. Watch how this shows up in relationships. You say you want authentic connection, but how often do you show people who you really are versus who you think they want you to be? You perform personalities based on what gets approval rather than expressing your genuine nature. Why? Because authentic expression is risky. People might reject the real you. They might not like what they see, so you create false selves designed to be likable, acceptable, safe. But then you wonder why your relationships feel shallow, why you feel lonely even when surrounded by people, why nothing you achieve feels truly satisfying. It's because you're getting validation for performances rather than for who you actually are. The same pattern plays out in your work, your creativity, your entire approach to life. You seek formulas for success rather than developing your unique talents. You follow proven paths rather than creating new ones. You aim for what's reasonable rather than what's extraordinary. Nietzsche would say you're living what he called a human, all-too-human existence. Small, safe, predictable, and ultimately meaningless. You've confused comfort with happiness, security with strength, acceptance with love. But here's what will change everything. Nietzsche also showed us the alternative. He called it becoming the Übermensch, not a superhuman in the literal sense, but a human who has transcended the need for external validation and learned to create meaning from their own authentic nature. The Übermensch doesn't seek freedom from responsibility. They embrace responsibility as the source of their power. They don't avoid difficult choices. They relish the opportunity to shape reality through conscious decision-making. They don't fear being different. They celebrate their uniqueness as their greatest asset. This isn't about becoming arrogant or selfish. It's about developing what Nietzsche called amor fati, love of fate. It's about learning to love your life so completely that you would choose to live it exactly the same way, infinite times. It's about taking such complete ownership of your existence that you become grateful for every challenge, every setback, every moment of uncertainty, because they all contributed to making you who you are. But there's something even more radical in Nietzsche's philosophy, something that most people aren't psychologically prepared to handle. Nietzsche's most revolutionary insight was this: there is no inherent meaning to existence, no cosmic purpose, no divine plan, no ultimate point to any of it. And this isn't a tragedy, it's the greatest opportunity in the universe. Because if life has no predetermined meaning, then you get to create meaning. If there's no cosmic purpose, then you get to choose your purpose. If there's no ultimate point, then you get to decide what's worth pointing toward. This is what he meant by God is dead and we have killed him. Not that religious people are wrong, but that humanity has evolved to the point where we no longer need external authorities to give our lives meaning. We have the psychological capacity to become our own meaning makers. But here's why this terrifies most people. Creating meaning is infinitely more difficult than inheriting meaning. Following someone else's path is easier than blazing your own trail. Adopting ready-made values is simpler than developing personal ethics through trial and error. When you truly understand that you are completely free to create any life you want, the weight of that responsibility can be crushing. Every moment becomes a choice. Every decision becomes a statement about who you are. Every action becomes a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. This is why most people unconsciously seek limitations. They choose jobs that constrain them, relationships that define them, belief systems that direct them. Not because these limitations serve them, but because limitations feel safer than infinite possibility. Nietzsche saw that the people who could handle this radical freedom would become the creators of new values, new possibilities, new ways of being human. They would become what he called free spirits. Individuals so comfortable with uncertainty that they could dance with chaos and create beauty from confusion. But the people who couldn't handle this freedom would become increasingly dependent on external structures to tell them how to live. They would seek stronger governments, more detailed rules, clearer social expectations, anything to avoid the terrifying responsibility of self-creation. Look around at modern society. Which direction do you see humanity moving? Toward greater individual responsibility and creative freedom, or toward greater dependence on external authorities and social validation? Nietzsche's prophecy is playing out in real time. Most people are choosing comfortable slavery over uncomfortable freedom. They're trading their power for security, their authenticity for acceptance, their potential for predictability. But you don't have to be most people. You can choose differently. You can embrace what Nietzsche called the will to power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. The power to create your own values, the power to choose your own suffering, the power to shape your own destiny. This requires what Nietzsche called going beyond good and evil, moving past conventional morality to develop your own ethical framework based on what actually serves life, growth, and authentic expression. It means questioning every belief you've inherited, every value you've adopted without examination, every limitation you've accepted without testing. It means becoming comfortable with being misunderstood, because authentic individuals are always ahead of their time. It means accepting that your path will be lonely sometimes, because pioneers always walk alone before others follow. It means developing the psychological strength to validate yourself instead of seeking constant external approval. Most importantly, it means learning to love the process of becoming rather than seeking the safety of being. Nietzsche understood that truly free individuals are always in the process of creating themselves. They never arrive at a final, fixed identity because they're too busy exploring what else they might become. This is the brutal truth about freedom. It's not something you achieve once and then possess forever. It's something you must choose fresh every day, often in the face of tremendous pressure to conform, comply, and surrender your power to others. The question isn't whether you're capable of this kind of radical freedom. You are. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price, the end of all your excuses, the death of your victim stories, the responsibility of becoming the sole author of your life's meaning. Freedom isn't free. It costs everything you think you are to discover everything you could become. But for those brave enough to pay that price, freedom offers something no amount of security can match. The chance to live a life so authentically yours that death becomes irrelevant because you've already achieved immortality through self-creation. Nietzsche said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But he meant something deeper than resilience. He meant that every challenge, every setback, every moment of uncertainty is an opportunity to demonstrate your power to create meaning from chaos. It's a chance to prove to yourself that you are not a victim of circumstances, but a creator of possibilities. Your fear of freedom is keeping you from discovering the most important truth about human existence. You are far more powerful than you've been willing to admit. Not powerful in the sense of controlling others or circumstances, but powerful in the sense of being able to choose how you respond to anything life offers you. Stop seeking permission to live your life. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to pursue your dreams. Stop looking for external validation of your worth. Start creating meaning instead of seeking it. Start choosing your battles instead of having them chosen for you. Start becoming who you authentically are instead of who you think you should be. The world doesn't need more people hiding from freedom. It needs more individuals brave enough to embrace it completely. It needs more free spirits willing to create new possibilities. It needs more people who understand that the meaning of life isn't something you find, it's something you make. If Nietzsche's brutal truth has awakened something in you, if it's made you question whether you've been choosing security over authenticity, then like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share this message with someone who's ready to stop fearing their own power and start embracing the terrifying beauty of radical freedom. Because the greatest tragedy isn't that life is meaningless. It's that so few people are willing to create meaning worthy of the incredible gift of being alive.